The forest was quiet except for the sound of Jess's breathing and the soft crunch of leaves beneath her shoes. It was supposed to be a normal morning jog, the kind she took to clear her head and escape the tension that had begun to creep into her marriage. But what she found that day changed everything. She saw him lying in a patch of burned grass, a boy no older than 8, curled up like a wounded bird. The ground around him was blackened, the earth itself seared as if lightning had chosen him as its target. His thin body was marked with strange burns, and across his mouth was a black mask that looked eerily out of time, something between a gas mask and a breathing device from another world. Jess froze. Her mind screamed at her to run, to call for help, to do something, anything, but her heart refused to leave him there. When she crouched beside the boy, she realized he was breathing, faintly but alive. The air smelled like smoke and iron. Her first instinct was to yell for help. The forest answered her with silence. There were no birds, no breeze, nothing but her own trembling voice echoing back. Against all logic, Jess lifted him. He was impossibly light, almost weightless, as if the air around him held part of his being. By the time she reached home, her arms were numb. She laid the boy gently on the couch, wrapped him in a blanket, and watched as he drifted into uneasy sleep. Her husband, Chris, was furious when he came in, a man of science who believed every mystery had a rational explanation, but even he hesitated when he saw the marks on the boy's skin. "This isn't right," Chris muttered, running a finger just above one of the burns. "It's like he's been branded by heat, but there's no infection, no blistering, just carbonized flesh." Jess stared at the child's face. There was something hauntingly serene about him, as if he didn't belong to this moment, this world. "What if," she whispered, "he's not from here at all?" Chris shot her a look. "Jess, don't start. You found a neglected kid, that's all, nothing more." But deep down, Jess couldn't shake the feeling that this boy, silent, strange, and surrounded by ash, had brought with him something far beyond what either of them could understand. When Brianne, Jess's friend and a local social worker, arrived later that afternoon, she looked at the child with a cautious expression, the kind professionals wear when the truth might be too strange to admit. She asked questions, took photos, and examined the burns without touching them. "I've seen neglect before," Brianne said softly, "but this doesn't look like anything I've dealt with." Jess nodded quickly. "Exactly. The ground was burned, perfectly circular, like it happened in a flash." Brianne looked up. "A fire?" "No," Jess said firmly. "Not a fire. It was clean, controlled, like a mark." Brianne hesitated, typing something into her phone. "Well, I've checked the system already. No reports of a missing child matching his description in the area. I'll keep looking, but for now, he'll have to stay with you." Jess's heart leapt before she could stop it. "Stay? Here? With me?" "Just for tonight," Brianne said. "You've done the right thing, Jess. But if we find his parents, he'll have to go back. You know that." The words hit her harder than she expected. Go back? To who? To the people who burned him? The thought made her stomach turn. That night, the boy slept on the couch again, wrapped tightly in the same blanket. Jess sat nearby, unable to rest. Every hour or so, she'd check his breathing. Sometimes she thought she saw faint light beneath his skin, just under the collarbone, like veins glowing with distant stars. She told herself it was her imagination. She was tired, strung out. She hadn't eaten since morning. Still, the feeling that she was watching something not entirely human wouldn't go away. Chris came home around dawn, still wearing his scrubs from the night shift. "Are you still awake?" he asked, rubbing his eyes. "I couldn't sleep," she whispered. "He's different." Chris gave a tired laugh. "You're just exhausted. Once the social worker finds his family, this'll all be over." But Jess didn't answer, because just then the boy stirred. His eyelids fluttered open. and he looked directly at her for the first time. His eyes were pale gray, so pale they almost looked silver, and in them was something impossibly old. Then, without moving his lips, Jess heard it. A voice. Not in her ears, but in her mind. "I didn't mean to come here." Her breath caught. She stared at him, her heart hammering. "Chris," she whispered shakily, he just spoke to me." Chris frowned. "What do you mean, spoke?" But Jess couldn't explain, because the boy was still looking at her, expression calm, almost sad, and though his mouth never opened, his voice echoed again, clear and cold in her head. "I was supposed to stay in the circle." Her blood ran cold. She stumbled back from the couch, knocking over a glass of water. The sound startled Chris, who rushed to her side, but she barely noticed him. The boy's eyes were still locked on hers, unblinking, ancient, and knowing. "What do you mean, the circle?" Jess asked, her voice trembling. "What circle?" The boy didn't respond this time. His head lolled to the side, his eyes closing once more as if the brief exchange had drained him completely. "Jess," Chris said slowly, looking from her to the boy, "you're scaring me." "He didn't say anything." "He did," she insisted, clutching his arm. "I heard him, not out loud, but in here." She tapped her temple, wild-eyed. "He spoke in my head." Chris sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "You've been up all night. You're imagining things. When I get off work tonight, we'll take him to the hospital for a full scan. Maybe he's dehydrated, or you are." But Jess wasn't listening. She was staring at the faint outline of ash still clinging to the soles of the boy's shoes. That circle in the woods haunted her. The smell of burnt earth, the way the air had shimmered above it, it wasn't something she could forget. Hours later, while Chris slept upstairs, Jess sat in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone, searching for anything that matched what she'd seen. Crop circles, lightning strikes, UFO sightings. She found nothing that explained it, but she did find a local news report, an old one, about a mysterious explosion in those same woods 10 years ago. A flash of light, no sound, no source, no debris. Locals called it the Silver Fire. Her phone buzzed. A text from Brian. "Any updates? How's the boy doing?" Jess typed back. "He's strange. I think he talks without talking, and he said he wasn't supposed to leave the circle." There was a long pause before Brian replied. "Jess, I'll come by tomorrow. Don't let him out of your sight." That night, the house was quiet again. Jess sat near the couch, half dozing in a chair, when the air suddenly grew colder. She opened her eyes and gasped. The boy was standing now, barefoot, staring at the window. Outside, the night glowed faintly blue, like the sky itself was pulsing. "Hey," Jess whispered, "you shouldn't be up." The boy turned slowly, and for a second she thought she saw faint cracks of light on his skin, glowing from within. "I have to go back," he said, not with his mouth, but in her mind again. Jess stood, shaking. "Go back? Where?" "To fix what I broke." And before she could move, every light in the house flickered out. The room plunged into darkness. Jess's breath came in ragged bursts as she fumbled for her phone flashlight, the beam shaking in her trembling hands. When the light finally flared, the boy was gone. "Chris!" she screamed. Her voice echoed through the house, met only by the low hum of the refrigerator turning on and off as the power sputtered. "Chris, wake up!" Footsteps thundered from upstairs. Chris appeared in the doorway, eyes wide. "What happened? Where is he?" Jess pointed toward the open front door, where a trail of faint gray footprints, ash again, led into the night. Without thinking, she bolted outside. The air was colder now, unnaturally so, and every breath left her lungs in clouds of mist. She followed the prints down the path toward the woods. The circle was glowing again when she reached it. This time, it wasn't smoking. It was alive. A low hum filled the clearing. And at the center stood the boy, arms outstretched, the same black device still covering his mouth. Blue light pulsed beneath his skin, brightening with every heartbeat. Jess stopped at the edge. "Please," she called out. "You don't have to go back. Let me help you." The boy turned, eyes reflecting the light like mirrors. His voice was soft in her head, but clearer than ever. "If I stay, they'll come for you." "Who? Who are you talking about?" she shouted, her voice cracking. But he didn't answer. The lights surged, rising from the ground like a pillar of flame, soundless but searing. Jess shielded her eyes. When she opened them again, the boy was gone. Only the circle remained, smoking, still warm, just like before. Chris arrived moments later, panting, flashlight darting through the trees. "Where is he?" Jess couldn't speak. She just stared at the ground, at the ash that marked where the boy had stood. Her heart felt hollow. In the days that followed, there were no updates from Brienne, no record of any missing child, no evidence that the boy had ever existed. The police humored them, took a statement, but they didn't believe a word of it. Yet every night after that, Jess dreamed of him, of those silver eyes and that faint, pulsing glow. In her dreams, he stood in the circle, waiting. Weeks later, she found something under the couch cushion, a small, black, metallic piece that hummed faintly when touched, the same strange material as his mask. She lifted it to the light, and for an instant, she saw her own reflection flicker, split into two, one version of herself standing where she was, and another inside a place where the air shimmered like liquid glass. The hum grew louder, her hands trembled, and before she could set it down, she heard his voice again, just a whisper in her mind. "You shouldn't have followed me." Then, the metal piece went cold. The lights in the house flickered once, twice, then went out for good. Jess stood frozen in the dark, the echo of his voice still in her head. Somewhere, far beyond the circle in the woods, something had awakened. R.F. Kuang's Making Space, part of the Time Traveler's Passport anthology, blurs the line between time, trauma, and the haunting cost of compassion. It's not just a story about a mysterious boy, it's a chilling reflection on what happens when humanity's desire to help collides with forces we can't begin to understand. In Kuang's hands, parenthood and sacrifice become metaphors for survival, and sometimes making space means surrendering everything we think we know about the world around us.